How many special people change? How many lives are living strange? Where were you while we were getting high? Slowly walking down the hall, faster than a cannonball. Where were you while we were getting high? Zach, guess what happened this week?
I don't know. What?
Oasis is getting back together.
Oh, really?
Everyone clap your hands. The brothers, they've been feuding for a long time since I have remembered, and they realize how much money they can make, and they are going on tour next summer, world tour, Oasis live. They are not playing at Glastonbury, for those who are wondering, and you will be able to watch Wonderwall live once again if you would like to. Wow. And you can hear a much better rendition of Champagne Supernova than what I just sang.
Okay, wow. Well, maybe. They're a little bit older.
I just felt like this was a very newsworthy thing to start off episode 120 of the Movie Vault with. I'm Zach.
Wait, what? I'm Zach, and I'm Ben.
I kind of have to go with it now because I messed up.
You said I'm Zach?
I said I'm Zach. Okay. That wasn't like a joke either. That was like I legitimately just said I could tell by
your facial expression.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I'm Zach.
Well, normally our episodes don't start off this oddly, but I did think that Oasis getting back together was an important thing to talk about. But I don't really have a feel for how much of our audience this would really affect. If you were young, like in your teenage years in the 1990s, and you were for some reason in touch with British culture, you would probably care a lot about Oasis. Otherwise, you might not care about it as much because their like moment happened like right after the grunge era, and it lasted just about as long as the grunge era. It only lasted a couple years, but they were huge in the mid 90s. And that brings us into the chaos of the movie we're reviewing today.
I was thinking the only bigger reunion, there might be two. The Jonas Brothers, they kind of got back together, right? They did their own did some things recently.
They might have gotten back together. That would be a big one.
But One Direction. And I think One Direction...
That's true. One Direction getting back together would probably be bigger than this.
I think One Direction is duping us all because I think they are secretly planning a 15 to 20-year reunion where they will sell out every stadium in the world.
That you are dead on, because One Direction is a business. Like, they were created by producers who had a plan. You do this, you're marketable for, they probably have a certain amount of years that they know. Then they're like, okay, we're going to spin you off. We don't care which one's the most successful. We probably knew it was going to be Harry Styles, but we didn't know for sure. We don't really care as long as you all maintain some sort of relevance. And then we know we can bring you back together in 20 years and do like a huge mega nostalgia tour for everyone. And that's why, as excited, I wouldn't even say I'm like that excited about Oasis getting together. I kind of look at it like, was this all this feud thing, which is between they're two brothers, so that adds some family elements to it, Noel and Liam Gallagher. But it's the cynical side of me, which I was thinking about it. We're like fairly cynical here on the Movie Vault. So the cynical side of me said that this is all just like a ploy. They never were really feuding in the first place, or they kind of knew that the feud would just lead to this buildup.
How long have they been feuding? I
think people care more about Oasis now getting back together than they would have if they would have always been together. That their moment would have kind of petered out.
Yeah,
it'd just be like, oh, it's Oasis. You can see them every year, you know, wherever. And now they have this big feud. There's all this there's this cinematic story behind them, making up and getting back together and playing live again.
Wow.
So
since 2009, so it's been about 25. Or it's been 15. I don't know. That seems a little on the nose. 15 years.
But it's been such a aggressive and verbal feud.
Interesting. Yeah. It says it was at the Paris Insane Festival. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but they in front of people they broke up.
Yeah, so that already sounds staged, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying.
It's on a stage.
Like they did it in front of people. It was very in the public. That they were, and all of a sudden they're just ringing each other's praises and saying nice things about each other, out of the blue, and they're going to do this reunion tour. I'm not buying it. But I couldn't pass up the opportunity for you guys to hear my amazing rendition of Champagne Supernova.
Well, there's your music plug for the episode.
Yeah,
we got that.
Get it out of the way early.
But what we don't have to get out of the way is our new series, which is Paul Thomas Anderson series.
Yes.
We'll do this and 2 other films. This is Punch Drunk Love. A feeling that both Ben and I have felt at one point or another in our lives. Maybe a little bit of love here, a little bit of confusion here and there, a little bit of rage and anger in the middle as well. All that mixed together into some chaotic, frantic, wonderful, beautiful, color-paletted film by Paul Thomas Anderson, or as we refer to him here as PTA.
Yeah. It was released in the year of my birth. Actually, the year of our birth. We were born in the same year, 2002. And it was the 4th feature film, full-length film, directed by Paul Thomas Anderson. He was coming off of 2 massive successes, actually. Boogie Nights, which was more of a success story of an independent film hitting it big.
Independent film?
Yeah.
He's the independent film. You're not talking about the plot.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
The independent film being Paul Thomas Anderson, spearheading the production. And then Magnolia, which was also a financial success, which is kind of amazing. We'll get to Magnolia in our series, but
sure, yeah.
For the movie that Magnolia is, I'm actually surprised when I was reading things like huge financial success. So then he decides to make a movie that he has specifically made for Adam Sandler to play. So I was looking into this because I was curious how this came about, because it's not a pairing that I feel like people don't. It's not a pairing people talk about now much anymore. It's like people have kind of forgotten about this movie, and it's not the pairing that you would have expected coming off of some of the people that Paul Thomas Anderson has worked with in the past couple of years, which include Mark Wahlberg, Philip Seymour Hoffman, who is included in this movie, and Tom Cruise, and Magnolia is like a huge ensemble with several famous character actors. But anyway, he actually did to build upon our last episode, he got Adam Sandler's phone number from Tom Cruise.
Wow.
While he was on the set for Magnolia. So somehow, I guess what he told Adam Sandler was that he was a big fan of Adam Sandler's movie Billy Madison. And which I've heard of, but I'm not really familiar with. Like, I haven't watched it. I don't even really know anything about it.
If you've seen any Adam Sandler film, it's quirky, offbeat guy who's hilarious throughout the whole film and just causes frantic. I keep using the word frantic. Causes chaos.
Yes. So he called up Adam Sandler and was like, I want to make a movie like specifically for a character that you're going to play. And Adam Sandler was like, great. That sounds good to me. Sandler, from kind of the research I've done, because based on this movie, I would have thought that, he would say, oh, I can make more movies like this. But it seems like by choice, Sandler has been like, no, I'm going to mainly make the Billy Madison style movies. Like, these movies allow me to hang out with my friends, to hang out with my family, and make me a lot of money. So he's a very talented comedian, talented actor, but very pragmatic decision maker. And maybe that, I don't know, I didn't look into his marriages, but maybe they've lasted longer because he's made decisions based on his family and
based
stuff.
Off no information, maybe.
Yeah. But Sandler I'm glad that he did take up this role because he's phenomenal in it. And
what actor could say no to a movie being made specifically for them?
That is true too. And when it's like, at this point, it's kind of the hot hand. Like, 4th movie for an up-and-coming director is like a big time to be in their movies because everyone's talking about them. Hasn't gotten to the point where it's like a legacy. They're like a legacy act yet, where he would be nowadays. Yeah. Not to say that it takes away from the movies that they make, but it's like, it's more of a sure thing. But it feels like it feels like you're hitting someone on their rise, which is, I think, a great place to be at as an actor. Yeah. You feel like a lot of directors' best movies come from when they're on their rise. And then some directors have like 2nd and 3rd and 4th and 5th rises.
I would agree with you. I think when a director's already pre-established, you expect their movies to be so good that often they're disappointments. And when the director is just becoming more, familiar in culture, I'd say that's when it hits a lot harder. I think of even Tarantino, like his biggest influences were in the early part of his career because those were the ones that were smacking against, regular cinema, just looking so different. And nowadays his films are like expected to be Tarantino-esque. And although they're like really looked at like and really longed for, they don't hit the culture as much as they used to, I'd say.
Yeah. Yeah, they're successful. He has a fan base. People go see his movies, but people don't talk about the movies the way they talked about Pulp Fiction when it first came out.
And no, people don't talk about movies ever the way that anyone has ever talked about Pulp Fiction in just in the grand scale and influence it's had on cinema.
I mean, Paul Thomas Anderson in a lot of ways is the Robin to Tarantino's Batman. And I don't mean that in a way to put down what Paul Thomas Anderson has accomplished, because he's done that in his own right. But he was the guy who was kind of doing a similar thing to Tarantino, just like a couple of years later. I mean, his big breakout was his second movie, just like Tarantino. Mm-hmm. It came 3 years after Pulp Fiction, so Boogie Nights. So his first film came a year after Pulp Fiction, and his biggest film came 3 years after Pulp Fiction. So he was a little bit behind Tarantino in terms of just like the timeline. Yeah. But it was in the same era. Mm. So people were after Tarantino looking for other directors who could do a similar thing. Yeah. But the important distinction about Paul Thomas Anderson, and maybe I should have gone for another superhero instead of saying Robin, because that sounds like he's like working with Tarantino. It wasn't exactly like a partnership in that regard, but he wasn't trying to do the same thing as Tarantino. He has his own distinct style. Mm-hmm. Actually, he went for like a very, very like epic ensemble. He continues to emphasize throughout his career, like, how do I utilize very talented actors and make very character-driven stories, but in a very like artistic, like with good cinematography kind of way. And I would even go as far as to say like his cinematography and how he uses soundtrack. Maybe soundtrack you could make an argument for Tarantino, but I think from a camera work perspective, Anderson is superior. Yeah,
I would agree with you there. I also think what they have in common is they both are very good at fitting multiple storylines together and interweaving them, even if it's at the end of the film, like in Pulp Fiction, and just balancing a lot of B plots. Both of these films have a lot going on. It's pretty chaotic. Yet they show that there's beauty in the chaos and that some of the best moments can happen from really random scenes,
Yeah, very true.
So maybe there's a little bit of postmodern-esqueness in there, but I think, PTA, one of his greatest things is the sound and just the idea of pacing the film around the sound, pacing the characters around interweaving storylines, kind of like Quentin Tarantino. So I think PTA has some similarities, but I think he sticks out when it comes to especially color paletting his films. And this film is a great example of that. And then visual storytelling is PTA's greatest strength, in my opinion. I've only seen 2 of his films, this and There Will Be Blood. I'm waiting to see Magnolia, but the visual storytelling in both of those films, through cinematography, through character interactions, through just framing and color palette, you get most of the information about the film from those rather than the actual words. I mean, it's about a few minutes into the movie before any sounds are made in this film, when you get that opening scene where the car just crashes and then the harmonium just appears there.
Yeah. So would you like to take us through the plot real quick?
Let me take it away. So in my if I'm going to delve into this plot, which is a little bit confusing, I'm going to do it pretty quickly. There are 5 different storylines. And I got this from a few different video essays that I synthesized in my head and made it into 5 storylines. So it's about this character named Barry Egan, and he is really socially awkward. He has 7 sisters, and they kind of emotionally abused him growing up. He can't deal with his emotions. He keeps everything inside. He closes himself off from other people, and deals with himself in very unhealthy ways. So his interactions are very closed off, limited, and he likes to keep himself safe rather than open up. He is a plunger salesman. He works at a plunger store. I think he actually owns and runs it, although it's out of the back of a warehouse, so it's not really super successful. And the first storyline is with his family. So he obviously was raised, kind of being emotionally abused. They said some words to him growing up that obviously affected him. And when the sisters bring it back up, he shuts down a little bit and gets angry. And they invite him to a party, one of his sister's birthdays. And they just are overloading him with asking questions, telling him, giving him suggestions, talking about his life, making fun of him, trying to set him up with a girl. And he eventually rages out and then punches a bunch of windows, kicks them, and then confesses to his sister's husband that he needs a lot of help. So that's that storyline. Then there's a plunger storyline where he just kind of has this job going on, and he really focuses on the job, and he focuses on his own life. He says, instead of going to the party, I'm going to go get my gym membership what's it called? Renewed, yeah. And he is focusing on his own life, but throughout the film, that kind of all falls apart. You have crashes in the warehouse, you have forklifts going everywhere, and he eventually just abandons his job and to go on this trip to Hawaii with Lena. The third storyline is the sex phone line, and he falls for the scam because he wants to talk to somebody because he's lonely, and he gives him their credit card, his name, social security, everything else, just falls for it. And then these people are after his money. And throughout the film, they even come to him, beat him up, take his stuff, go make him give them money. And he gets lied to. And eventually that comes to a culmination at the end when he faces off with the head of that company, that false company. Then there's the love story with Lena. One of his sisters sets him up with Lena, who he had previously met in a car. When she brought her car to his company warehouse place. And she trusted him with his keys, and immediately they had some type of friendship, and she was interested. But then she eventually says that she saw a photo of him with 7 sisters and kind of was stalking him and met him on purpose, which explains why she was so trusting with her keys to him. And they go on. She travels to Hawaii for work. He follows her. They have a great time. And truly, this is the heart of the film, is the love story between Barry and Lena. And he learns to open up through her. And the fifth storyline is the harmonium. And that's kind of like the glue of the film. The heart of the film is with Lena. The struggles of the film is his family and the sex phone hotline and the plunger storyline. But the heart of the film is Lena, and the glue of the film is the harmonium, because the harmonium, in my opinion, and after watching the video essays with my opinion confirmed, is kind of like this foot in the door moment where his emotions are finally able to flood out. He sees this harmonium, and that's what he kind of clings to, is this idea that he is able to express himself and finally get out there in the world rather than just keeping to himself and not doing anything. And there's even a scene where, all these scenes, there's so much chaos because all these 5 storylines are hitting each other, going against each other, and there's a scene where there's so much chaos going on, and there's a scene where you can see his sister in the background, Lena in the background, the plunger, boxes of plungers falling from the shelf, the harmonium, and the phone ringing at the same time, and it just shows his face. And in that scene, he just puts his hand on the harmonium, and it shows that like he's clinging to this idea that he can get through it, he can open himself up, and not have to deal with all these things going on in unhealthy ways. So that's my plot synopsis. It really culminates in him falling in love with Lena, and him facing off and threatening and getting away with threatening Philip Seymour Hoffman's character that is the boss of that phone sex hotline company. Would you say that's a fair synopsis?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's fair. It is. It certainly has a lot of interwoven parts, and it does a great job, like you pointed out, of making the film, because it is a film that's essentially about Barry. Like you could say it's kind of about Barry and Lena, but it's really about Barry. Mm-hmm. And it is filmed in a way that brings you into the chaos of how he experiences his life. Like this is how he observes it being. And even the soundtrack is like percussive. So like all those things that you just mentioned in that scene. And then there's like a very percussive kind of erratic soundtrack that's non-traditional in the background. And when the soundtrack changes and calms, and there's that huge scene and the iconic scene of the movie where they kiss in like the outdoor hallway or whatever that is in Hawaii. And it's just repeating this song that goes, he needs me, he needs me, he needs me, like over and over and over. But it's like a calming like hypnotic. It's
Yeah.
repetitive, just like the percussive sound trip, but like it's a calming repetitive and not like a I want to punch a window kind of, because the film actually kind of builds up a lot of tension in you and makes you kind of want to act like Barry in a sense. You maybe won't actually because you can regulate your emotions better, but
PTA does a great job of getting the viewer to actually feel what Barry is feeling through the use of sound and images. And it leads to where, like, when he's punching things in the bathroom, like, I'm feeling anxious. Like, I want to, like, do something. You know, I'm about to punch my screen.
Yeah, and I was talking with someone about the movie, and they make a good point that his part of his journey in overcoming his insecurities and opening up is that he always, and maybe this is true of our lives too, always has a desire to not reveal the things that are embarrassing or mistakes that he made, and he either downplays them or completely makes up a lie to ignore their existence or to deceive the other person, and that never is rewarded in the movie. I mean, and it keeps compounding because he'll say one lie and he'll go into the bathroom and like tear it up, and then he has to like try to make it look like he didn't do that to the waiter. I mean, the person was actually nice and pulled him away from the table and accused him of doing it and didn't do it in front of Lena, and Lena didn't ask very many questions, but like there's so many scenes where he's just like his desire to like scheme and get out of things is just like it's putting a weight on him that's just like way too big, and he's gonna, and the sex line and everything, it just keeps building, and it's like he realizes, maybe he's kind of forced to realize that he just can't keep living under that pressure of always trying to make his life appear like it's better, but he's really still appearing to be pretty pathetic and sad to even like to his family, and like they're part of like what has made him this way, but he still has to recognize himself that like to some degree he has to be the one to change some of the things
and
that are happening
my
to him.
review on Letterboxd was, you can be known or you can be safe, not both, which is similar to my last Color of Money review. But the idea that he needs to be the one to open up is great, because there's that scene where he and Lena are together and he's getting her phone number. Right when he gets her phone number, one, the percussive sounds change and it becomes a lot less claustrophobic in the scene. So like it shows that the soundtrack or the sound design is really built around his psyche. And also he immediately makes a bunch of excuses like, oh yeah, I don't have anger issues, and I don't need therapy, and I don't do all these things. You know, those were all lies. He like says 8 of them, or like 5 of them in a row. And she's like, okay. But it's hilarious because he's like, eventually throughout the film, he'll like tell her, like when they're making out, he's like, I broke the bathroom, I'm sorry. And like he'll like start to open up and acknowledge and tell the truth and really just come in touch and become in tune with life.
And the more he does it, the more he realizes this is actually the healthier thing to do. Yep. And this will actually help me not continue to make these decisions and continue to not be able to regulate my anger and not be able to process things in the correct manner and like act out in ways that like civil society, if you want to call it that, would automatically deem that as like a way that this person is acting out. Yeah. Or would have a hard time understanding why a person is acting this way.
Yeah. And it's cool because the harmonium sounds played during those scenes where he starts to open up, and even when he finally goes and kisses her, he's running up on a handshake, right? Mm-hmm. So he's going up there with a handshake, and it's hilarious because then he still has the handshake, but then he just kisses her, and it's so funny, and like it looks like they bump heads a little bit.
Yeah, if you watch the actual kiss, like it's not like this. It's set up like it's gonna be a super cinematic like kiss that's just like perfect, but they're really like very awkward, swaying back and forth. You also realize immediately when the kiss happens, they're in a very public space. Yep. So everyone around them can see what's going on. Yep. It's not like this private moment.
Well, that's that punch drunk love. So that's punch because it's very spur of the moment, drunk because you don't think about it. You just go for it. Yeah. And that's what he has to do to get through. That's how he has to play the harmonium, is to actually just like do it without thinking about it, because it seems like he just gets in his head and doesn't think about it. He's like, it's a long shot if I even go to the party. He said that to his sister, and He eventually goes, and when he goes to the party, he opens the door, he goes in, he goes out, he goes in, and he goes out. It's like he just has to take those steps forward.
Yeah.
And there was one other kind of storyline that I just included in the plunger storyline, but like in his personal life storyline, which is the pudding storyline.
The pudding storyline, yeah.
And I didn't bring it up because it's just a whole other thing, but basically he has this he found this hack where he can get a bunch of flyer miles, or what is it, frequent flyer
miles. So I was just rewatching the first scene because this is delved into immediately into the film, which I want to talk about how brilliant like the story choices are in this film too. But like you don't know this character, and the first thing he's talking about is how he's actually reaching out to the company and being like, I think I found a loophole. Are you sure this is like actually how this? He's like giving them an opportunity to tell him, oh yeah, we need to fix this, and they don't seem to care. But you buy 10 products, which pudding I think he said was 25 cents for a pack of 4, but it was really less than that because there was each pack of 4 counted for 4 individual items, not one item of 4. So you could get like I think 2-3 packs would be, you need to buy 10 items, so that get you 500 frequent flyer miles.
Yep.
And I'm not a frequent flyer, so I don't know how the point system works, but I assume like you get so many frequent flyer miles and then you get a free flight.
Yep. I
assume it's not like 500 free miles. I assume it's like a point system, but it's still like whatever amount of. It's still cheaper than any plane ticket would be, and you could theoretically buy he calculates out the exact amount, but it's like it's in the thousands. Like it's not in the hundreds of thousands. It's not like an unreasonable price. You could basically get unlimited flying for the rest of your life.
About 3,000 could get you over $1 million for frequent flyer miles,
which is a ton. You could basically fly for the rest of your life.
Yep. So it was inspired by David Phillips, who was the real life pudding guy, quote unquote, who earned 1.25 million frequent flyer miles by exploiting a healthy choice. That's the company promotion. And they gave 500 miles for every 10 pudding UPCs mailed in. And so it's the same exact storyline that PTA stole.
He spent exactly 3,000. So it is that's impressive that he took this, like he probably read it somewhere, like this is a really strange storyline, and then was like, this is something I could apply to the character. Like what would be a quirk? Like I'm proving that this guy is like odd, but those people who are just like geniuses in the strangest way. Yep. That's kind of how they're trying to set up this character, Barry Egan, as like he's not stupid, but everyone in his life thinks he is because they see him as somebody who can't interact socially. But in his brain, he's got like it works, it functions in a way that he can easily see something like that.
This film is also, as I'm going along with what you're saying, a social experiment because it's trying to look into the psyche of someone that society might deem weird. But everything that he does in this film kind of makes sense to us, right? Yeah. We see the insides. We see how frustrated he gets by his sisters. But other people might be like, oh, your sisters, they love you. That's what they're talking. But like for him, he gets freaked out by those things. And also like the frequent flyer miles, like, why do you have so much pudding? Well, I'm trying to go on a trip. That doesn't make sense to the outside world. But for him, it makes sense, right? And he's trying to do all these things at once, and he's not very organized. But that's because we know that he's like awkward in his head. He can't think straight a lot of times. And
he's kind of aware of his awkwardness, which is worse for him. Yes. That he's aware of his awkwardness.
Yes.
It is also, sometimes it's bad for people to be not aware of their awkwardness and still be awkward and be confidently awkward.
Like Tarantino.
Like yes, exactly. That's a great example. The real life Tarantino.
Yep.
Because those kind of people can kind of like at least be read by society, and there might be some underlying layer of they seem like selfish because it's like everything that they say matters the most, even if the audience obviously doesn't care what they're talking about.
That reminded me of something, man, that I can't get out of my head right now. There's a scene, so in there's Jamie Foxx and Quentin Tarantino were talking, and Jamie Foxx was in oh my gosh, I'm blanking. I just watched it last year. What's the film?
Oh, Django?
Django Unchained. And he's like, he comes in, Jamie Foxx comes in and reads his lines, and Quentin Tarantino just goes, stop. And he takes Jamie Foxx outside, and he goes, do you know what you just did in there? Jamie's like, what? He's like, you're an effing slave. You don't even know that you come in here with your nice car and you come in here and read your lines all suave, but you're an effing slave. Start acting like it. You're going to get out of here. It was the funniest thing I've ever heard. And Jamie Foxx tells this story in an interview, and it's like, I don't know. Quentin Tarantino just got so hard on him for not acting like a slave, like constantly as he came into the office, as he read his lines, and Jamie Foxx was like too cool. He's like, I had my concerns about bringing you in for this, like, and then he like switched it around, and Quentin Tarantino liked what he did. So it was just, anyway, awkward with confidence can be good, but
it could also be. I mean, if people didn't have the initial underlying confidence in Tarantino, that could be a quick end to your career.
Yeah.
So it certainly is like a fine balance in all of these things. Another thing, like I said, the story structure of the movie is brilliant, because what it is the exact story structure of that's like the stereotypical romantic comedy story structure. Yeah. It has a man and a woman. They're introduced early through a sort of chance interaction, but it was kind of on purpose. But that could be a trope in and of itself in romantic comedies. Eventually, they have the initial date and kiss, which goes well, and he sort of throws it off by having he leaves, and she literally calls the front desk and says that she wants to kiss him, and he like runs back, and that's a great scene as well, because it like shows his like it's his what he wants to do versus what it's like the exact tension that it's trying to show. So that might go into more layers than your average romantic comedy, but there's still like that first, like it's going well, and then there's the dilemma, which in the case of this film is the phone sex line.
Yep.
And that creates a bunch of chaos, and then eventually they come back together.
Yeah.
And it works out.
And it's hilarious that he in this film is kind of innocent with the phone sex line. He's gullible and naive, but he's kind of he really wanted someone to talk to.
Anytime they bring up anything sexual, he doesn't want any part of it.
Yeah.
Which makes me like, and this might be true of like, I don't know who that might be a legit thing that happens on phone sex lines, is that people are just like, I know that these people will act like they want to talk to me.
Yeah.
Because they know the longer they leave you're on the line, the more money they make. So they don't really, actually they probably would prefer you not to take it in the sexual direction.
Yeah.
If you would do that. They're expecting you to, but if you didn't, they would not have a problem with it. So
I actually think the longer you're on, the less money. So it was like $2.25 an hour.
But they would still make more money, because the rate goes down, but they're still making more money.
Yeah. Also, pause. Sorry, real quick. Mm-hmm. Jamie Foxx played a slave in the film. Quentin Tarantino was not calling him a slave. I had to say that because just in case nobody's seen Django Unchained.
Yes. So, just to clarify.
Yeah.
It's still a strange story.
Yeah.
Doesn't make it not a strange story, but
yeah.
I see the point that about people being awkward and like having.
But he doesn't have confidence. That's the thing in this film.
He has no confidence.
So there were these cool. There were two of them in this film where it just cuts to these ethereal colors.
Yeah.
Which were kind of, for me, at least when the first one came, I was a little bit confused, but I was, enjoying the ride. It was cool. And then it just goes and blends in right with the rest of the film. Is that to show that we're in his psyche, or is that to show like just some beautiful colors, or is
it could be either? That's the thing about these like artsier films. I feel like directors are more likely to do things just because it's cool.
Yeah.
But they also might tie some sort of underlying meaning, but they want the audience to be the ones who are ultimately determining. Yeah, it certainly could be like from his psyche.
Yeah.
And like you could draw it out in a more literal direction and saying like, did he actually confront the guy, the folks that did he drive all the way to Utah and confront him? Or was that more of a, I'm imagining this as a way to break through and be like, this is what I would say to this guy, and that frees me from the guilt and the extortion.
Yeah.
Now it appears that all the brothers actually came and all of that. So like I have no reason to believe this movie is some sort of like dream or anything like it. And I'm not like super into making every movie like that.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think it's just a visual way to kind of snapshot like change. And the idea that there are a lot of things going on in different colors, and that's how he perceives the world. He doesn't think big picture. He really doesn't. He's more of just dealing with the stimulus that's right in front of him, and it overwhelms him. So maybe that's what the colors were, but that's just my Zach.
I'm just impressed
theory.
that you and other people determined that he was a plunger salesman, because the whole movie I was just thinking, what are they even doing in this warehouse?
You didn't
must
know?
have missed. Well, I saw him demonstrating the plunger, but I didn't think of him as like solely all he was doing was selling plungers.
Oh,
I
no.
was like, they're dealing something out of, like, they're selling products.
Oh, maybe other things but plungers, but he talked about how he
But that's
specially
the
made plungers for casino.
That's the only specific thing that we're given. So by what we're given by the film, he sells plungers.
Yeah.
And it's like, I saw this scene actually in a video, like better in a video essay, because they like isolated it, but he was like, it's an unbreakable plunger, and then he smashed it and it breaks. Mm-hmm. He's like, well, this is an old one. So he's like doing it in his business too.
But in the middle of that, there's chaos because his sisters keep calling him, right? And
that's why you kind of miss certain things like that.
And it's hard for him to keep these things in life separate. He doesn't want his sisters coming to work, right? He doesn't want.
And they seem to be really like, it's sort of an abusive relationship in the sense that they aren't giving him any credit that he could live life on his own. So they feel like they have to basically plan his life.
Yeah.
But they're very negative about it. It's like resentful, sort of like, oh, we have to do all these things.
Yeah.
It's like they're worried about him, but they're not really worried about him. It's so strange. And we only get a few interactions, so we don't see the whole picture.
And there's more condemnation than exhortation. It's more like, oh, you better come to the party. You better not do what you always do and just stay at home.
And I love how the sound mixing is.
Yes.
So I think when he walks into the party, all of the side conversations are super loud, and you hear everything like you're part of the conversation, but you can tell that he's not supposed to be hearing these things. Yeah. Like they're talking about it like to somebody else, and but they're also not that concerned if he did hear them.
Yeah.
So it's like they're not like real hush hush about it. But I think he intentionally elevated the sound mixing to make their voices sound louder, so that you'd have this effect of like kind of walking in the room like you're Barry.
Yeah.
Which is a lot of what we've described in this movie.
Yeah.
It's like you're supposed to be it's like a first person movie.
Yep. Yeah, and that's great because it's cool because there are scenes without Barry, but it's also, and that's what I'm saying, the visual storytelling shows the psyche, even though Barry is not in every single frame. So even when he was running away from those four brothers that came to beat him up from Philip Seymour Hoffman's character, I mean, just like the sounds, it was like intense, and he's running and he's crying and he's panting and he's like making weird sounds you don't know because he's never been in this situation before. So like, it's showing like these new experience. Everything in this film is a new experience for him. Mm-hmm. So he's shocked, right? His core is being shaken, and he, like the sound design, really shows exactly what he's feeling. And it makes, like I said earlier, it makes me feel that same thing too. Like I was pretty freaked out when he goes into that dead end in that hallway area, and then the other guy comes out and is trying to punch him, right? And then he punches him, and then he just runs away on the road. And I don't know. It was very intense.
And scene. It's so cathartic when he flips it, and all of a sudden, Lena's in danger, and he utilizes all of that anger and rage that you saw from him breaking the window and stuff, and realizes like these brothers aren't actually, they're like not really professionals. They don't like, so he kind of catches them off guard, and
I'm
he
not
beats
even sure
all
if
of
he
them
cares
up.
If they are.
Yeah,
because he's punch drunk.
And that line that he says where he has like, I have love in my life, and that's stronger than anything you could ever imagine, or something. Yeah. I don't think that's the exact line, but that's the effect of that. Is like he literally portrays that in that scene. Yeah. Of course, then he kind of messes up again because he leaves Lena alone in the ER.
Yeah.
But and it's funny, he admits to that.
Yeah, right away.
The third kiss, which I would argue that we might have the 3 best cinematic kisses in history in one movie, because they were all like, like a lot. Romantic movies are supposed to build up to a kiss. It's like a trope, a thing that it's like it's not satisfying to the viewer if it doesn't. But it feels like the meaning behind all of these is like amped up because of everything that we've experienced with Barry.
And they mean something different. Each one does. One of them is him coming out of his shell. The other one's reconciliation. So
yeah, and the one in the middle is like recognition of love.
Yeah, for sure. And recognizing that he needs to be punch drunk. I think that's the thesis. And that's what happens when he stands up to Philip Seymour Hoffman, right? And Philip Seymour, he walks out the mattress store, and Philip Seymour Hoffman's like, he's like, all right, he cusses at him, and he turns around, he's like, what did I warn you? And he's like, all right, That's that.
And he's not even in that many scenes, but he does this classic Philip Seymour Hoffman and steals the show. If you want to see more Philip Seymour Hoffman and PTA combo, you got to go watch The Master. That's a brilliant film, and Philip Seymour Hoffman is very much at the center of that movie.
Yeah.
But
another interesting thing about Lena, though,
actors.
It kind of reminds me of Michael Scott Holly Flax a little bit, because it's like the only person who could love someone as weird as Barry is someone that's weird. Someone who stalks him to get, like, this person had to, like, make a plan to be with him, right?
Yeah,
that's
and
the
she's
only type
so
of person.
She's also so already determined that Barry is the person she wants to be with, which is exactly what Barry needs, because he's not, at the beginning of the movie, he's not in a place to be the pursuer.
Yep.
Like, their roles are somewhat reversed in the gender roles that, like, are normally like shown in these movies.
Sure, I see what you mean. Yeah, I think you're right.
And she's playing more of like the guy pursuing the woman, even though she's the woman pursuing the guy. Yeah. And she gives him a chance to, like, kind of, but she's the one who sets up the date. She's the one who says she wants to kiss him. Yep. She's the one who. The only thing he does is say, "Oh, I might see you in Hawaii if I'm there," and then we start seeing him take more initiative once he's in Hawaii and making those decisions. But it had to be her. It couldn't be anyone else, because she's, who else would, like, look at Barry and be like, "This is a stable." They wouldn't think he was stable. This is a person I want to be with. Yeah, because you'd see all this instability, you get scared away really easily. Yep. But there's something charming she sees in that, like you said, I think you said, like, naivety, and he's really probably been kind of emotionally stunted. Yeah. And it doesn't necessarily send a good message that just falling in love doesn't fix all of your emotional problems. No. But if you kind of, it could aid if it's with somebody who, if seeing, like, in the context of this movie, where he steps up and protects her at times and realizes, like, the responsibility kind of being with someone, and how you have to be vulnerable. If that's the way that it happens, it could actually help you grow. Yeah. Because relationships in their ideal form are supposed to help you become a better person. You know, it adds accountability. Yeah. I've never had a child, but I assume if I have a child, I take my own life more seriously because it affects another life. And especially marriage. I know you experience that now. Yeah. You look at decisions and things that you make differently, because you're like, not only am I responsible for how this affects me, but now I'm responsible for how this affects another individual. And when you step up, that helps you yourself tremendously. Yeah. And because you take your life more seriously. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Because you might, those decisions that you might have made that you, if you weren't in a relationship, might be super unhealthy decisions. But the way that you're thinking about it is like, you have accepted the consequences, even if you don't really actually know what those consequences are. Yeah. And they could end up being super destructive down the road. I would even say on the minor level, like having a dog, just because, like, you know, you got to be up in the morning because you got to feed the dog. You can't just live whatever life you want to live because you have someone that needs food. That's very true. You know, you could do it on a range of things, from dog all the way to, 45 kids, or what's the Horton Hears a Who, 9 daughters. You're George Mueller and you raise 10,000 orphans. Yeah, well, that's a little. That's like the most. The most, and you also happen to believe in the power of prayer, and you. Did you go through the first 3 chapters? Not the first 3. How many? We just did the intro. Okay, good. So I'm not far behind. And we accidentally got, a bunch of people accidentally got the modernized version, so that was a big. What's the modernized version? It's just like an abridged version, so it wasn't the real autobiography. Interesting. Why would they make one of those? I know, it was It was very, like, unclear that it was you had to, like, look on the inside page. Well, I guess having both might be fine. We can get different perspectives. Yeah. Anyway, that's a side conversation. That's very context-driven conversation. Or like PTA, where we're, like, talking about things that you don't have context for, and you're having to, like, follow along. Yeah. Who do you think is... So Sandler, this film was made for him, and it really is the opposite of what he does. He's a goofy character. He's in goofy comedies with stupid plots. Now he's in a serious, mental health driven plot. And
what a combo this is. What other combos do we have in modern day Hollywood? I mean, post 2010 Hollywood, because this was when we were born, right? I would say within our lifetimes, there's been a new age of Hollywood. And what would you say is the next PTA Sandler combo?
So I wouldn't know whether to call this a similar, but a movie I can think of that casts a there's two movies I can think of off the top of my head that cast a traditional comedian role as in a more serious setting. One would be, and we've already reviewed it, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, where Jim Carrey is a very serious. It's not really funny at all. It's odd. Mm-hmm. And it's very colorful like this movie, but it's not. And it's about romance and heartbreak and all of that. And he does phenomenal in that. I honestly forget what the director's name is. I know he's French, and I know Charlie Kaufman, the writer, has gone on to do other things. And he's they're together, like Charlie Kaufman and Jim Carrey. I don't almost consider, because I know how much Charlie Kaufman influenced the script of that movie. Yeah. So I'd almost consider them together. So you could make the argument. That was in 2004, so that was only 2 years after. Yeah. Then there was this movie called, it was brought up in a group setting recently. Will Ferrell plays an accountant. It's called Stranger Than Fiction. Yes. Yes. I don't even know who directed that movie.
I would say Will Ferrell, though, is a little bit more established in the serious drama roles nowadays.
That's true, because he is in some Adam McKay movies, right?
Yep.
As more serious roles.
Yep.
Yeah.
He was.
So Stranger Than Fiction reminds me of this movie. It's still that's Mark Forster, who's done some other stuff. Definitely is, like, he's done World War Z, stuff like that. So that movie is not quite as, it has some more, it's more that Will Ferrell is the straight man than it is like a really odd, like this movie fuses, actually it's like if you took away the Sandler that was funny and you just had the like chaos. Yeah. That's what this movie is. So it's not completely taking away who Adam Sandler is, because I was reading about it, and apparently Paul Thomas Anderson was obsessed with Adam Sandler's movies. He said he watched his obsession reached this like peak when he watched the movie Big Daddy in 1999.
That's great.
Which was around the time that
Which is a great film. Yeah. Have you seen it?
No, I haven't seen it. I have not seen a lot of Adam Sandler movies.
He's funny.
I've seen Happy Gilmore, I've seen Grown Ups, but I haven't seen like
that pretty much that's a good block summary of what he does.
Yeah, I mean, I'm expecting if I were to sit down and watch a few that they would be similar to that. And I will say I would probably have a good time watching a lot of his movies. Like, I wouldn't be opposed to watching them.
He steps into a little bit more serious comedy drama where it's like he plays a more serious character, but the movie is a comedy. I would say like Pixels or Bedtime Stories are examples of those, but they're fun movies, but they're not blockbusters. They're also not dramas, and they're also not full-on comedies. They're kind of just like in this in-between dramedy stage or phase.
Yeah, and like Pixels got panned critically, but it made a bunch of money. Yeah. So that kind of follows his business model, which is that he's not necessarily attracted to critically acclaimed films because he doesn't have to make movies that are critically acclaimed in order to make a bunch of money, because his audience isn't like people like us necessarily who are like trying to critically analyze movies. We've talked about this, like you're trying to remove yourself sometimes when you go watch films. You're trying to be entertained, and that means the less critical analysis the better, almost. Like you don't want to, like I read through some negative reviews on Google of which that's a hilarious thing to do, read like the 1-star reviews of like highly acclaimed movies, because the takes are just, they seem awful, but it's also like these were people who are specifically wanting to watch a movie that's like a normal Adam Sandler movie, and they somehow stumbled upon this movie and decided to watch it, and they're just like, I hate this. This is terrible.
It wasn't funny at all.
It wasn't funny. And they're not even looking at like, was it supposed to be funny? Like, what was it aimed for?
I was waiting for the punchline the entire movie, but I only got Punch Drunk Love. So Peter Weir directing The Truman Show. So you thought of
Eternal Sunshine,
Jim Carrey, and I thought of the same thing. I thought of The Truman Show. He plays
The Truman Show is a good example too.
And Peter Weir did the movie Master and Commander, which we've reviewed. So go check out that episode. Is that Jacob Tinnell?
No, that's just us.
That's just us.
Jacob Tinnell is Dr. Strangelove.
But did he recommend this one? That one?
That was my coach Thomas.
Okay, never mind. Sorry. Well, Jacob Tinnell got a shout out anyway. and he did Dead Poet Society. So both pretty serious films with, Robin Williams, another character that's funny and flubber, right? But then he's in Dead Poet Society.
He was a great example of a comedian who could like also play a really powerful, serious role.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Which is why he was beloved by so many people. And that's why Adam Sandler generally is liked, right? I wanted to do something.
And I was right about the marriage thing. He's been married since 2003.
Good for
and
him.
It's, as far as categorized, it's the only relationship that's really like talked about on his Wikipedia. Doesn't mean he didn't have other ones before that, but it's, the only public one. He has kids. His kids and wife are in his movies a lot.
Oh, good.
Like, it's just like, it's a more wholesome style of making movies than maybe we see.
And again,
normally.
You can see that in how beautiful both Adam Sandler and Paul Thomas Anderson show love in this film. I mean, PTA's been married since like 2000 something, early 2000s, to I forget her name, Maya Rudolph, and she seems fun, I guess.
And we were commenting how that was odd for a director to be married that long. And it's interesting because Fiona Apple, who is a relatively popular indie singer-songwriter, dated Paul Thomas Anderson from 97 to 2000. And I was reading on the Wikipedia that they had a kind of a troubled relationship, actually.
Oh, okay.
And which you might kind of see aspects of, because Anderson said he struggled a lot with anger during that time.
Okay.
So this might also be a little bit personal for him.
Yeah.
Not necessarily that he's as exaggeratedly socially awkward and all of that but specifically the anger part might have been kind of something that he struggled with as what, like, in his own life. Yeah. So you see that a lot in these auteur directors who like almost can't help themselves but create pictures of themselves in their movies.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I think you're right. And I mean, there are probably the list could go on and on. I wanted to relate Nicolas Cage, but he kind of has his own category.
Yeah. And we'll get eventually, I know it was supposed to be sooner, but eventually we'll get to a Nicolas Cage movie that I'm excited about where he plays a very serious role. Yeah,
we had to reshuffle some behind the scenes things here. But for good reasons.
For good reasons. Yep. Yes.
So, did we announce the series in the last
we
episode?
announced the series.
So we're not going to do that.
We're not going to do that. We should probably stop announcing series before we actually start them, because like anybody's lives, 2 lives, there's a lot that could change. Once you introduce 3 lives, then a lot can change. The more people you add, the more you have to be flexible. So that's how we are on the Movie Vault. We just want to watch movies at the end of the day.
Yep, and that's our thing. That's what we do. What was the most impactful moment of this film for you?
I think, honestly, it's weird to say like the kissing scenes were, but they were the scenes that made me realize the impact that all the other scenes had on the movie.
Sure.
And then obviously there's like some cathartic moments, like when he yelled, like in terms of acting, the interactions between Philip Seymour Hoffman and Paul Thomas and Adam Sandler. Although I'm sure there were some entertaining behind the scenes interactions between PTA and Philip Seymour Hoffman. But Adam Sandler, seeing those two actors work together, very different styles of, Philip Seymour Hoffman, one of the most legendary character actors in
ever
in his era. Yeah, and ever.
I would say ever.
And
I would say
Adam Sandler
DDL is too.
Not known for being acting in that style, so that like going toe to toe, matching each other's energies, it was great to see.
The other thing is, if you have 3 names like Philip Seymour Hoffman, Daniel Day-Lewis, Paul Thomas Anderson, you're already a great.
Like they know that when they do stuff like that, like they know, like,
yep,
I'm marketing myself, or just having a middle initial.
Yeah.
Also,
like James L. Brooks.
Yeah. Or we've seen George C. Scott.
Yeah.
Some people just know, like
John C. Reilly.
There's who's the guy in Hard 8 that he works with in multiple films? Philip Baker Hall.
Yes.
He's the star. He's also in Magnolia.
Okay.
He's a great character actor. So I guess the moral of the story is, if you want to be a character actor or like a well-known director, you got to go with the 3 names.
Yeah.
It's tried and true.
David
works.
effing Lynch. That's what most people would say.
Yes. Oh, Samuel L. Jackson.
Yep. Yep, that's another one.
Especially if you have a name Samuel Jackson. Just you could get confused with so many people.
That's true.
You gotta throw in the L.
Yeah, some of them are intentional for that reason. But yeah, I would say for me the most impactful moment was that cathartic scene where he's running away from those people, and then he finally builds up to going up against Philip Seymour Hoffman. And when he says like, "Love is powerful," quotation, you know, it's like it seems like when he's facing, he has nothing to lose, but really he has everything to lose. And I got that quote from an Outer Banks season 4 trailer that came out this morning, but it's a great, powerful quote. You know, you have everything to lose. And that's because he wants to protect her, even if it means leaving her in the hospital. But she trusts doctors. He trusts doctors. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I don't think you should trust all doctors.
I definitely don't think that.
Very few.
But I also think that sometimes life is about realizing that you can't control everything. You can't control all circumstances. And sometimes you have to trust people you don't know whether you can trust. And that's what love is that. But like getting married is you try through your own process to vet somebody as best as you can, and they try to vet you.
Yep.
And you're trusting that the other person is going to hold true to who they said they were to you and who they promised who they said they were. And they're going to mess up and you're going to mess up.
Yep.
But there's still this like underlying trust that you're building. And that's true of relationships that aren't as formally binding as marriage, like just relationships between friends. There's some level of like, I trust that you never like maybe draw it out on a contract or anything, but you trust they're going to do certain things or act certain ways or treat you a certain way. And if they don't, it starts to break your trust, and you have to either address it or the person never does. But
the harmonium is being able to express yourself amidst all that, you know?
And being able to
all that chaos
and stand up for yourself and stand up for those that you love.
Because you're gonna run into conflict. You can't hide always. There's a scene where it's perfectly framed. We didn't talk about the framing, but the framing in this film was great. Even in that opening scene, he's in that middle quadrant on the left side, just calling about the loophole that he found. But there's a scene where it's about split through the middle. The left side is dark, the right side is light. And he's running away from the girl. The girl's like trying to hand him keys, but he hides behind the door, right? And he hides on the left side. And it's like, you can have comfortability or you in safety, or you can have, expressing yourself and being known. And he goes to that safety wall a lot. But when at the end of the film, when he's facing all these things, he's really taken a step in that direction. And that's what makes this film beautiful. It's not just a bunch of random messes the average viewer might see. It's actually, the theme is like taking those steps into the light. And talking with people. We were made to communicate. That's the thing. Like, we're not made to be alone. Man is not meant to be alone. And the idea of being that closed off, it's sad, and that's a reality for a lot of people in the world, honestly.
And it may be becoming even more so a reality in the age of the internet, where the way that we communicate has changed, and some people find communities and places that they don't have to like fully revel themselves.
Yeah, just like him trying to call the people at the beginning, like, can I get your home phone? Can I give you my home phone? And the guy's like, no, it's okay. I'll just stick with, because he wants anonymity. I said animosity. Anonymity. Same thing with the phone sex line.
Yeah, exactly. And like now with group chats and there's all kinds of forums, communities on the internet that you can be a part of based on a specific niche that you're interested in, or gaming, or Twitch, or you can have one-sided relationships with people on the internet. You can have if you thought phone sex lines were bad, there's all kinds of like crazy, wild, horrible, evil, or just plain weird things on the internet. That people can start to warp their perception of like real life relationships with people. And the more that you go towards those things, and the more that you'll continue to be fearful of interacting with people.
Definitely.
Not that like interacting with people alone will set you up for success in life, but it's certainly something that you can't always avoid doing.
Yeah, you're right. And just being a man or woman.
Being
of integrity.
Well, yeah. And in some senses, being the man, like, he has to learn how to take initiative.
Yeah.
But being just having integrity, telling the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I was talking with a woman from our church last night who expressed that film, and she said this in a perfect way. She said, there are many films, like the movie Secondhand Line, which is a great film. You might really like it, Ben, where there are speeches of how a boy should become a man, right? Step up, protect, provide, blah, blah, blah. Be honest, shake a man's hand while standing up, blah, 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 blah. But there aren't many about womanhood. And, we're getting all these distorted womanhood movies these days, and it's hard for there to be films that express true femininity, I guess, if that's the way, or maybe this is a controversial way to say it, but and I very much agreed with her, and I thought, I can't really think of a great film that I might one day show my daughter, like a movie like The Secondhand Line. And I'm not going to show my son Fight Club to become a man, but there are good movies that I could show.
I'm going to. No, I'm just kidding. Well, that's not really the intention of the movie, but
exactly.
You could frame it that way, certainly.
Yeah. So this film has nothing to do with being a man or a woman, but it's more of a just this could apply to both genders, of course.
Yeah.
It's being closed off and coming out of your scene, and it's almost representative of Adam Sandler stepping into a new genre of character, and he, is going into he no longer has to be all fake, because I'm sure Adam Sandler's funny in real life, but if he has a family, then he believes in some things and he's serious about some things, right? He has stances, and none of his Happy Gilmore characters are actually.
Yeah, you can't act like Happy Gilmore all the time.
Yeah, so I think this is him stepping into a new light for that as well. So, do you have any closing thoughts on the film, Ben?
Just that I'm really excited that we're pivoting to Paul Thomas Anderson, because I think in just talking about this film, which, oh man, it's definitely not his best movie, but it might be my favorite of his. I give it 5 stars. I really, really, it speaks to how good of a filmmaker is that I don't necessarily relate to Barry's character, but I relate to a lot of lessons that I learned in this movie.
Yeah.
And it gives you so much to think about in just a mere, it's not even really an hour and a half, because there's like 7 minutes after the credits.
Yep.
So it's like not even an hour and a half, and they pack so much in.
Yep.
And it's everything that we stand for. It's thought-provoking, it's funny, it's a little bit dark, it's well acted, shot, well framed, everything that we've literally almost touched every part of cinema and said, wow, it's amazing how well he did doing this, Only thing he didn't do well in this movie was making money, because it didn't even really break even, I don't think.
Yeah, and it didn't win any awards.
That's because it was kind of I think it was more of a personal project.
Yeah.
And because I don't think, like, business-wise, Sandler taking this new role and knowing, like, that is, like, you wouldn't be able to take any of the fan base with you, because they would not understand this movie.
Yeah.
And probably wouldn't necessarily be as open-minded to it.
Well, I guess it won the Cannes Film Festival Best Director.
It did win him Cannes
PTA
Best Director. So I think financially, like, in the long term, it worked out for him, because it kept up his reputation. It's just like, if you're looking at purely about how it did in the box office, it wasn't.
And Emily Watson won Best Supporting Actress in Toronto.
Wow.
So
yeah, so pretty much, like, across the board, an incredible movie. I think one of the most underrated movies, because it gets overshadowed by some of his more, like, epic movies, and it's like this little hour and a half movie about 2 characters, basically 1 character. Doesn't have very many actors versus his, like, massive ensemble cast movies.
Yeah, it's not a grandiose film. It's really a ground level character film that's a little bit quirky. So I think a lot of those films can get overstepped by his There Will Be Bloods.
So I really can't sing enough praises about this movie. And considering all the talk, it might be like that we had about The Sting, and about, like, how we think movies should portray people. Yeah. I think this movie does a great job of, like, showing people their flaws, and also showing them that they don't have to keep repeating the same mistakes over and over again.
Yeah. They can move on. They can grow and learn.
Which is it doesn't, give you all the answers, but it's a good thing to learn and think about.
Yeah, he still has obviously a lot of ground to cover still. This is just his first steps, the harmonium.
Mm-hmm.
So,
what are your final thoughts?
That's pretty much it. I think, if you're in one of those situations where you're closed off from the world, take those steps out into the real world, and meet people. Even if your family is annoying,
Yeah, your family is. I love my family. I think they're great. But like not everyone has a great family.
And family isn't just blood. That's the thing. Family is not just blood.
Sometimes your family is like, or like the people who have strongly influenced your life are like the people you have to get away from until you like develop yourself, and then you can kind of face it in a more mature way. Some of the things that have happened. And
everyone's journey is different. Some people mature later in life. Some people mature earlier in life, and some people associate with, they go down wrong paths. They come back on. And listen, everybody's story is a movie. We're all treading this jungle that I talk about, the jungle of your movie journey, and everybody has a life journey as well, not just a movie journey. And these are obvious things.
Yes, so, things that we talk about every week.
Yeah, here at the movie.
But in the frame of a different movie.
Yep. Frameworks matter. Okay, so what's your movie highlights?
So last week I watched Nosferatu, the 1922 silent film.
Are you gonna watch the new one?
That's why I'm building up to.
Okay.
So I'm probably gonna watch the Dracula movie that I think came out in 1931.
Okay.
And then there was a Werner Herzog 1979 Nosferatu movie.
Quite a difference in time.
And then I'm sure there's other, because this is Nosferatu, Dracula, like all those things like run together. They're all originate from Bram Stoker's Dracula book, which I should probably read that too.
Yeah.
But
so you're hyping yourself
up. I'm hyping myself up for Nosferatu. I'm really buying into the Nosferatu train.
Okay.
Why? Because I'm just excited. I feel like we need to get excited about new movies.
Why then? That's
because we need to bring the energy. I've been going to movie. I think I'm going to go to a movie on Monday. I want to see Jason Schwartzman's indie comedy Between the Temples, which is like, I don't really know. I know it's a rom-com, and I know that he's Jewish, so it's like in the context of like a Jewish person's life, and it sounds interesting to me. And I watched the trailer, and it was interesting, so I'm gonna go watch it. I think I need to support, if I'm gonna complain about all these Marvel movies and stuff and say that they're bad, I need to support the alternatives. So Nosferatu is a remake, but there's it feels like a different kind of remake.
Okay.
Because it's like a historical story that we've always seen in every era, a version of it.
Yeah.
So I'm okay with that.
Okay.
So I'm supporting it. I like what I've seen from Robert Eggers, which is, I think, just The Lighthouse so far. But
okay.
And it comes out at the end of the year, so there's this big hype train.
Okay. Do we need another George Miles? What's the moon one called?
Oh, like a
Trip to the Moon.
Trip to the Moon.
Do we need
that? Would be cool if
remake
somebody
of
did that,
because that's one of the first films ever made.
I know that we kind of got that with Hugo, but it was more like a historical.
We got that with Hugo.
Like the movie is in Hugo.
It's
about. I think the film is kind of about George Miles.
Oh yeah, and George Miles in general. I meant specifically
but
Trip to the Moon.
If they did Trip to the Moon and they did an homage to it, that would be great.
With real aliens.
I watched
and wizards
an Orson Welles clip this week where he was like, young filmmakers need to stop watching so many movies and stop doing homages to movies.
Wow,
that was his take. So then I was like, maybe I need to stop. But then I was like, I'm not trying to be a filmmaker, so that doesn't apply to me.
You're a podcaster, which means that you have to
actually need to watch more movies because that's what it's all about.
Yes. So don't listen
to do something that I don't need to listen to Orson Welles about.
Orson Welles is a great filmmaker, but whatever.
Anyway, not to get too hung up on Nosferatu, but I am excited about it. And we just saw the Megalopolis trailer.
Looks good. Adam Driver.
Yeah.
Driving this plot forward. It's going to be good.
I think it looks like I'm a little nervous, but I'm not really nervous.
Has Francis Ford
excited.
Coppola ever stepped into this genre before?
No, that's what I was thinking of. I was like, and he's made so many movies that nobody talks about that are bad for so long. I just don't know whether we know what to expect. But it looks epic. That's what I think. I think no matter if it is kind of a mess or not, I think it'll be an exciting movie to watch. That's kind of my opinion.
Yeah, Adam Driver does great. I think I trust him.
Yeah.
Bring some Kylo Ren moves into this.
I rewatched Pulp Fiction.
Oh,
it was so good. And then I watched The Man Who Cheated Himself. I've been kind of liking these little short noir movies to watch every once in a while. They're this one was about a cop who participated in a murder with the lady who was having an affair with, and then he was assigned to the case of the murder that he was the accomplice of, kind of deal.
Interesting. That's probably happened in real life.
Yeah.
At least more than once.
So I like these little noirs. It was like not revolutionary, but it was good.
Okay.
And then I watched Richard Kelly's Southland Tales, which I was telling you about, which is like, it's very, seems like the fifth element.
It's because we made a joke about doing the sixth and seventh
element.
But
the fifth element has like those like costumes and stuff, but it's set in the 2008 election cycle. It's a dystopian movie made in 2006, set in 2008. It's like, and so much has changed in 2 years.
Well, all of this makes sense because Richard Kelly directed, for those of you who don't know, Ben's favorite movie, Donnie Darko.
Yeah. And it is, as much as I wish that he could continue to hit on what he did there, he didn't in this movie, but it was, I will say, I only gave it 2.5 stars because it is a mess, but it was very fun to watch.
Okay.
So it's kind of like a fun mess.
I added it to my list.
Yeah. I would say it's worth watching.
Okay.
I think if you watched it multiple times, which I probably wouldn't waste the time doing that, but you probably could understand it better, but I just don't think that it's
some holes aren't worth digging.
Yeah. You don't need to do that.
Yeah.
Interesting movie. Kind of sad it messed up his career, but also one of the things that you have to do as a filmmaker is be able to be concise. Yeah. So that's a skill.
Well, the problem with this film, you said, is that there were 3 graphic novels that you had to read beforehand.
Yeah, because he kept adding stories and adding characters and adding things that were intertwined, and it just, like, he needed some no's.
It's like and
he somehow miraculously strung together a budget to be able to like kind of pull it off. But his VFX, he was just way too ambitious for the cachet that he had.
Do you think don't take this comparison too far. Do you think that Richard Kelly would be David Lynch if he could control himself?
I don't think he would be David Lynch. I think he'd be closer to Christopher Nolan.
Really? You think he has that symmetrical mind?
His movies are a lot more technically oriented. It's just his execution is not.
Is Donnie Darko?
Yeah. Well, think about it. It's like a very technical, like, it's a movie that has a right answer. Like, it's not
okay.
It's not really it feels ambiguous because of the lack of explanation, but it really is a movie that has a complete setup and answer, which is why Nolan was involved in getting Donnie Darko greenlit. So because I think he saw that in Kelly. But Kelly never was able. He had so many ideas, so much vision, but he was never able to put it together in a concise enough fashion.
He didn't have that discipline to cut things out.
Yeah. Somehow it worked out in Donnie Darko barely. It barely works.
Yeah.
It's almost a miracle because we watched the director's cut.
Yeah.
If that was the cut that would never have gotten popular.
And the thing is,
so it
Richard
miraculously got together, but through amazing editing. But if it hadn't, we might not have never talked about it.
He made Donnie Darko Studios, which he only released 3 films through. And it makes sense because he wanted an outlet where he could put his weird films out there, right? He wants to be this indie director. But at the same time, you have to get people, money is a part of it. David Lynch does make some money, even if he doesn't make a ton. He made The Elephant Man, right?
Yeah, he made movies that he knew probably weren't his passion projects, but would make him money. So he was able to work as a director and be an auteur.
Yeah,
and I would say, could turn it on and off.
I would say a PTA story is rare because he goes straight from Hard 8 to what's the film before Magnolia?
Both Tarantino and PTA are rare.
Those are rare. You can't get there quickly, Richard Kelly. It's more of you got to be Lynch. You got to make a straight story. Work with Disney for a little bit. Which Lynch working with Disney sounds so wrong.
It's always been a one for us, one for them. We talked about it kind of with Scorsese, and you're like, why is he doing a movie about pool that's a sequel to a movie from 1960? It's an odd for what we think of Scorsese as now. Because but he was still working for this. Ahead. Yeah, he was still working for the studios. He was still I got to work within constraints. I think Kelly was so, and to some degree, I appreciate how much he believed in his own ideas.
Because 2 or 3. The other thing is,
just to have Donnie Darko, I think, is a good enough accomplishment for any director. Some directors have made 20 movies and their career was longer, but they never made a movie as good as Donnie Darko. So it's kind of like a trade-off. I don't think I would ever I don't know what he thinks about it, but I would never say with having a movie like that your career was a failure.
You dip your foot into the big box office for a little bit and then make some money, get your own opportunities and avenues and go forward. You don't sell yourself to it like Michael Bay. You actually become make your own path.
Because then you can make Southland Tales 4 hours. And somebody else pointed this out too. Southland Tales might have been a great TV show, but they weren't making massive budget.
But here's the thing.
TV
Richard
shows
Kelly
in
didn't know that.
2006.
David Lynch knew Twin Peaks had to be a TV show.
Yeah.
So he made Twin Peaks.
That's true. And he figured out a way to make it a TV show in the time that he was it was
Doing
on
films.
ABC.
You're
and
right,
then he made the Showtime, which I haven't finished yet, but tonally is way different because he was allowed to now that they have streaming, but he had to make the tone the way that he did, and it works out great. But it was a little bit campier, a little bit funnier because that's the way that it had to be on TV, even with
he adds
super
his own
dark
Lynchian
themes.
twist to everything.
Yes.
And that's what makes it amazing.
Yes.
So
there's so many lessons to be learned if you want to pursue filmmaking, and we would really wish that directors would listen to our podcast so that they could understand all of these things when they're making decisions.
Richard Kelly knows much more than us, but here we are talking about how he made mistakes.
Sometimes you need to hear an outsider's perspective.
Sure. I'm just saying you can't do all you want.
No.
Only a few can, like
There's-
PTA and QT.
Yeah, and that's only because of the successes that they had, that they were able to have.
Yep. I mean, you and again, was it Southland Tale had? I'm assuming it had CGI if it's dystopian or no?
Yes,
And
it
it
was
had
horrible because
crazy
the budget
costumes,
wasn't
but
high enough.
What did Quentin Tarantino do? Reservoir Dogs, the lowest budget, one of the greatest films.
Yeah,
ever
sometimes
made.
you have to match your budget with your project.
Yeah, it's
right?
not like Quentin Tarantino, intentionally his, breakout film was the lowest budget film he's ever made, and he played with what he had. I don't think Richard Kelly is playing with what he had.
No, he wasn't, because he was counting on production money coming in after the first edit so that he could make the VFX better, and then that didn't happen because the first edit wasn't good.
Yep.
It did get invited to Cannes, but it got booed and panned, and it was not good.
I'm just saying you can't it's like putting a second mortgage on your house. You have to be able to provide for your family, aka your movie career.
Right. Sorry, Shaz, that we're at an hour and 16 minutes.
Yeah, I forgot she said.
But we like talking about after the hour mark. We're usually not talking about the movie.
Yeah.
So
we gotta get some things.
We won't be offended.
Ranting.
We won't be offended if you shut it off at an hour.
I don't have any movie highlights.
Yeah, I figure you're busy with medical school.
Yep.
We're kind of in different eras of our lives.
Yep. So I mean, I'll get.
I'm watching all my movies now, so that when I'm watching Despicable Me with Little Timmy. And those are the only movies that I'm watching.
I hope you actually name your son Little Timmy. But I'm finishing out semester 1 of seminary, so once I'm done with that, I should have just a little bit more time.
Like a little margin of free time.
A little bit more time where I'm gonna watch. What am I gonna try to watch? Licorice Pizza by PTA.
Yeah, I'll try to see if I can watch the other PTA movies that I haven't watched. That way, just to add some context. Yeah. There's only 3, so.
Some more video essays on PTA.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, can I close the vault? Do you have any other things?
I have nothing else.
So we'll do another PTA movie next week. We'll go a little bit more into PTA, and I'm not going to keep predicting because, again, things don't always go as planned, but most likely we'll do a little bit segment on him. And, I think his films will get better as we go forward.
And he's also slated to make another movie next year.
Yep.
So we'll have some PTA to look forward to. Neither have I. But I saw that was supposed to come out.
And look out for Outer Banks Season 4.
Yeah.
Yep. So let me close the vault. That's that.